Here's Stankie.
What's up everybody, another beautiful day in Azeroth, and here's a quick guide to Mythic plus Grim Butthole, going over important trash abilities and boss mechanics. Notable trash before first boss: Earth Callers, Cryo Interrupt, Mass Tremor, 60 yard AoE that slows, otherwise kick their Earth Bolt. Tank, beware of Twilight Brutes, Brutal Strike, Tank Buster. Twilight Destroyers targets random players with Twilight Flame Dot, deals damage and causes the player to drop shadow puddles on the ground. Tanks, beware of the Overseer's Rive, big tank buster that increases physical damage taken, and it stacks. It will also enrage nearby allies with Reckless Tactic. During the bombing event, each player gets a dragon and 5 charges of Engulfing Flame. Goal is to bomb the scarier trash pulls, to not have to deal with them or to make that pull easier. For example, the last pack before boss, which has 2 Overseers and 3 Earth Callers in it, or another one where there's 3 Earth Callers and a Twilight Destroyer. So those are prime packs to use Engulfing Flames on. And then spam Searing Ember on the other pack, or when you're out of Engulfing Flame charges. Moving on to first boss, General Umbras. Most important mechanic is the Commanding Roar. When Umbras cast this, 3 out of 4 lanes will fill up with purple voidy stuff, and shortly after dragons swoop down on each of those lanes. So find a safe lane fast. Players targeted by Rock Spike gets a circle around them, and shortly after drop an earthy puddle on the ground. When this hits, you also get knocked forward a bit, so don't get knocked into a dragon lane. Do try and place these well or you risk running out of space. Tanks, beware of Skull Splitter, a channel tank buster that stacks a bleed. And then we have notable trash before the second boss. Make sure to interrupt or stun/stop the Twilight Beguiler's Seer Mine channel, which stuns its target. Otherwise, kick Shadow Flame Bolt. Molten Giants, if they are stunned by Beguile, they take 20% damage, so focus these if that's the case. And healers, beware of Molten Wake, AoE damage to the group that increases fire damage taken. And tanks, beware of their Lava Fist if you have the Molten Wake debuff. So for the second boss, we have Forge Master Throngus. Mr. Forge Master has access to 3 different weapons and gains different abilities based on what weapon he uses. Anytime he swaps a weapon, the group takes a ton of damage over 4 seconds, so healers beware. The order is always Axe, Sword, Mace. Axe will give him a Fiery Cleave, targets a random player's location with a giant cone that leaves behind molten pools, which lasts for 5 minutes. Try to bait these into a wall, or at the very least not straight down the room. And when he equips the sword, it gives him Molten Flurry, tank buster that also applies a dot to 3 random players, causing them to drop molten pools underneath them. Pools are bad, and during the Mace phase, boss deals 1000% increased melee damage but moves 50% slower. Run away. Tanks, make sure to kite it or blame healer when you get pounded out. And the boss will also drop molten pools during this. Notable trash before the third boss. Twilight Lava Benders targets random players with a giant frontal. Don't take it to the face. If you're targeted by Dark Eruption spreads, you don't cleave each other. When they ascend, they deal a ton of ticking damage to the party. Also, DPS should consider thinking about potentially dabbling with the thought of popping a defensive, and the Twilight Warlocks cast Enveloping Shadow Flame, which is a dot curse that also applies a very large healing absorb. Decurse this as often as possible if you can, otherwise just heal for it. There's also some repeat of second boss trash like Twilight Beguiler and Flame Renders. For the fourth boss, we have Daga Shadow Burner, or is it? Two-phase fight where you defeat Daga to start the actual real fight. Throughout the fight, Daga casts Invocation of Shadow Flame, spawning a fire elemental that fixates on a random player. If it reaches its target, everyone in the group takes near lethal damage. These can be stunned, slowed, knocked, etc. These are priority targets, so everyone except the fixated player should swap and nuke them down fast. The boss will also inflict 3 players with Curse of Entropy, which deals deals damage and applies a healing absorb that reduces your movement speed. Decurse or just heal forehead. Daga will jump away at 0 health and mounts his trusty steed, or dragon. The real fight begins. All the mechanics from phase 1 continue, but it now spawns 2 fire elementals instead. So again, make sure to slow, stun, etc. Valiona also casts Twilight Buffet, dealing damage and knocking everyone away, and spawns 4 tornadoes that twirl around. Tornadoes are not your friend. Make sure you don't get knocked into an ad by this if you're fixated. Silly way to die. Boss also has a frontal cone aimed at a tank. Also bad to get knocked into, so tanks make sure to aim it away from the group. Boss is defeated at 50% health and flies away. Notable trash before the last boss. Same trash as before previous boss, but you also get mutated hatchlings, which applies a stacking 5% shadow damage taken debuff on players when they die, which adds up, so beware of the extra dam. Faceless Corruptor spawns tons of swirlies on the ground, which deals damage and charms you if hit. Swirls are bad. Players targeted by their Corrupt need some extra love from your healer, or pop one of those defensives I've heard so much about. Now for the last boss, Redux. Throughout the fight, boss spawns shadow tendrils all over the arena, which deals heavy damage and stuns players that run into them. Even if you're into tentacles, do avoid these. During Shadow Gale, all of the room slowly fills with voidy void, except a small safe circle forcing you to run through the field of tendies. During this, 3 players are inflicted with abyssal corruption, causing them to pulsate damage 6 yards around them. Spread and play nice. Now, following a Shadow Gale, mutated hatchlings spawn. They work the same as the trash before, increasing shadow damage taken on death, which can make following Void Surge a lot more dangerous. And yeah, that's about it for the Grim Butthole. Hope it helps you all in Season 1. Let me know in the comments what you think, or if you have any questions at all. And if you want to help support my channel, check out my Patreon, Twitch, or YouTube membership, where you can gain access to the Stankie Discord, shoutouts, and videos, among other things. Don't forget the usual stuff: like, comment, subscribe, and ring that notification bell. It really helps me out. Thank you all for watching. I will see you next time.